Welcome to One Day in Transformation, the podcast where we talk to people who not only think about transformation, but live it. Today is a very special episode for Anthea and for me because it's not just a guest, it's a special guest. Cristina has been an external consultant for Heartprint from the very beginning, has supported us in projects, and is now also a close friend, either to the company and to Anthea and myself. Cristina, in recent years, you have been intensively involved in strategic foresight, in transformation, and the connection between digital, sustainable, and people. At the same time, you did work in practice, for example, at Siemens, where we first met, or in WIRE, which is a think tank in Zurich. And you bring these words together. Today, we want to understand how do you ensure that vision and future don't just remain on paper, but actually have an impact. So a very warm welcome to Cristina Castiglioni in our podcast in One Day in Transformation. Welcome and good morning, Cristina.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be at your podcasts and do it with you together, Anthea and Rainer. And welcome to everybody and good morning.
Good morning, Cristina. Nice to have you. So what fascinates me in particular is that you move between current visions, such as the vision of a Swiss city, and very concrete projects like the implementation of an ISO 50001 in data centers or AI-supported ESG trainings. How do you manage to build these bridges, and what can companies learn from your approach?
So that's a very good question, especially at the start, because the term bridges is very interesting to me. I mean, this is when you tell me that, that's as if you would read my master thesis, because this was all about why transformation or digital transformation fails and what's important for them to not fail. And one important element was communication. And communication you can improve by building these bridges with so-called boundary objects. Now, bringing all this theory together, what this means is actually what you need to build these bridges is a very good communication in all the transformation projects you do. And that's actually what's super interesting as well, because this means that you have different communication with different stakeholders on different levels, like, for example, C-level, but also expert in the IT department, and also with people of different expertise. And that's quite interesting. And you always need to think before you start the transformation and also during the transformation, how can I talk with those peoples? How can I bridge these gaps? And I think the most important step is before you even start with a project or a transformation initiative, because you need to have a clear vision and goal. You need to bring the relevant people together and say, that's the why we are doing that transformation. And there, for example, you can also use a visualization. Why are we doing it? What do we want to do? How do we want to do it? And I think that's the most important thing.
Thanks a lot, Cristina. And I 100% agree. In particular, the projects which we've driven together and which we've run together in Siemens, for example, there was communication, the key element to just convince people why it is of important to do such kind of topics, which at first might seem like, oh gosh, now that in addition as well, I do have already so many operational tasks each day. But I think communication is the most elevating aspect. Let's jump maybe one step back. You studied, as you already said, and you already pointed towards your master thesis. You studied economics and business innovation, but your focus nowadays, at least, is very much on foresight and strategic transformation. How did that move come, and how did that combination in particular come about?
That's actually a hard question because I don't know. I mean, when I think back to when I was thinking after school, what do I want to do? I mean, this was quite hard because I studied art, and then I was, okay, what do I want to do? I want to do something creative, but somehow I also want to understand the world. So as many students, you just say, okay, I don't know what to do, so I go for economics. So more things I cannot say to that. I mean, this was also some years ago. But I think what this gave me to study business or especially economics, it's the skill to understand the big picture. You understand how does the market work, how is everything interconnected, what are different trends, and this was what actually fascinated me when I did my bachelor. And this was not enough, so I went abroad. I went to South Africa to even see more of the world, and I think that gave me a very different view of the world, where I then started to get the motivation to change something, because I was like, actually everything is not right. I mean, now I see certain things and I would like to change something. Where then this lead me to think, but how? What's the tool? How can you do something? And I was thinking through innovation. Why not? Why not innovation entrepreneurship? So go to smaller scale, because you cannot change it all. So why not study business innovation? And that's then what I did. Went back to Switzerland, studied innovation. So I had the foundation with, okay, I know the big picture. I know that I want to change something, and I think innovation is nice. And then I started to work, and this led me then to the topics which fascinated me or still do, which is strategic foresight, because there you still see the trends. You see where is the economics going, where are the people and the trends for society going, and you try to understand it. And transformation, because it's actually the change of something. So therefore I ended up to be in that spot, where you always see that's the big picture. Here I want to go. Why do we want to do that? And then you try to change.
And if I may enhance that question, thanks for that very, very convincing explanation of why you do things. So that means transformation for you is not something negative, not something which you are afraid of, but something which anyhow happens and you try to take your own part in influencing it, right?
Both. I understand why many people, or including me, sometimes are afraid or scared, because I like also that things are stable. And I think it's quite overwhelming if you think, for example, of new technologies where everybody tries to keep on. And sometimes I feel, why can the world not just stand still? To give us also time to reflect and to make the right decision, because if it's too fast, maybe we do something, but we don't do the right things. So I like to change things, but I also like to reflect with people on what do we actually want to do. And that's why I like this strategic foresight topic, because I feel it's very important sometimes to go a step back and think, what do we actually want to change? Why?
Yeah, I think reflection is a really important topic, and it's often overseen. So it's nice that you stress this importance. Thank you. So let's have a closer look to your different career steps. So you worked at Siemens, the WIRE think tank, and now at IDEMA. What connects these stages of your career for you?
This is what I always try to bring into my CV somehow. But it's no, I don't want to make a joke. I think what's very, very connecting all of this career step is the transformation. Sometimes more in IT, sometimes more strategic, but in all of these jobs, I could work on transformation, which is very interesting, but in different environments. Siemens is a big corporation. There I worked in IT. A think tank is a very small organization, but which has very interesting collaborations with other organizations. And now at Indema, I work more with health or public sectors. But what's also next to the transformation included in all this job is the exchange with people who have a completely different background and skills than me. Like, for example, people coming from an IT background or from a sustainability background, or now at Indema we have people coming from the healthcare sector, and that's quite interesting. Sometimes it's challenging because you don't understand what they actually mean or what is the wording. But on the other hand, you constantly learn just by talking to people who come from different fields. And I think that's what connect those 3 stages.
Nice. In your self-description, you write, I help organizations shape resilient transformation by connecting strategy, digitalization, and people. What does this mean specifically, and where do you see the greatest leverage?
So what I want to say with that is that you need a strategy, you need the people, and you need digitalization to drive a transformation. So if you do not know where to go, you don't have a goal, so you cannot go forward. However, who should do it? So those are the people. I mean, or for who do you do it? It's, in my opinion, still the people. If you want to do a transformation, you should always have a people-oriented approach in the end. Of course, you have economic factors, you want to reduce costs, or you want to make more profit, but in the end, that's my opinion. It does not count for all the environments, but you should also take into account the people. And the digitalization is an enabler. So you can improve things with digitalization. It should support the way of working of people or the output to make it more accurate. So it's leveraging all 3 pillars together and make them interconnected. And I think that's what I want to state with that.
And I mean, we're already turning a bit into the very practical examples. And so let's maybe get into strategic foresight once again, but even more from a practical perspective. In your past, you've helped develop a vision for the future of a city in 2050, which I think in particular from climate crisis and changing what happens to us currently massively, we have to find examples very concretely what that means. So how do you translate a vision into very concrete steps, and how do you maybe involve then the people, as you spoke already about, so the citizens, but as well the administration, business community, everybody who is living in that city in the whole process?
So that's a very good question, and I like that you ask about that project because it was a cool project. And I think what you do first is you do not develop, you break down the vision into concrete steps. You actually have steps to create the vision. Therefore, you start to think, what are the steps we need to, in the end, have the vision? And what is very important is that the relevant people are part of the creation of the vision. So when I think back to the project, what we did there at the think tank WIRE was we first understand what's this city about, what's her DNA, what is her characteristics. And this was also an interactive workshop with all the people from the city, not all the people, but with a sounding board from the city, with people from the department, with people we specifically asked to do an interview with us. And then we identified the DNA. And based on that characteristic, it gets more tangible. And then you start to think, okay, what is the strength? What are the weaknesses of that specific city? And how can this city position themselves regarding where she wants to go in the future? And then you kind of open up all the possibilities you can do, and then you decide again and select, that's actually now the positioning we want to be. And in that moment, you start to create also your vision. But in all these steps, you do a lot of workshops with the people, you iteratively change. And that's actually the funny and the interesting part, because my role was not to create the vision. It was more being an orchestrator between all the people, bring all this information together, somehow try to bring clarity in it and then frame it differently. And very important is that in the end, most people think, nice, I was part of the creation of the vision, so I can stand behind it or I can accept it. And I think this was quite interesting in that project.
Sounds super interesting. And I mean, super relevant for all the major cities. Maybe just an additional, partly political question. Is Switzerland different than maybe cities outside of the a bit more wealthy part of the world? I mean, South Africa, for example, and if you compare that, is the idea of such kind of transformational aspects different in cultural aspects, or is it maybe the same and people are just thinking probably from a bit different angle? But do you see a difference in that?
Specifically in that case, it's hard to compare with another city, another country, because I never did it. But what I think is very interesting is that Switzerland, they are used to vote on something. Like they are used to have some different options and then come to an agreement by voting what's the best option and to hear the different voices. And I think that that's something which is quite natural for all the people. They are used to it. And I could assume that maybe it's not in all the countries like that. Is this the answer to your question?
It's a super relevant perspective, and I agree with you. I mean, as some of you know, and you in particular, Cristina and Anthea, I do listen mostly to Swiss radio, and so therefore I'm used to, in particular on Sundays, listen nearly every second week. Then there is some votings in cities or in cantonen. So there is a lot of involvement of in political decisions of people, and that is, I think, slightly different even to Germany. We don't have that. We don't have voting for something which would affect us. It's mostly politics who is deciding, and just maybe once in 4 years there's elections then for mayors and stuff. But yeah, very relevant. Thanks for that.
How is it, if I can ask, even though I'm interviewed the question back, how is it in Germany? Do you feel that that approach would work if you would apply it to a city in Germany, or would it be different?
Well, I mean, I think the involvement of people into decisions, in particular, if it comes to finding ways which people, as you said it, are able then to accept, would be much better for democracy, much better for involving people, and don't give them what currently is the overwhelming feeling that politics is deciding from top down and not having a clue or an understanding of what the real life of people looks like. I mean, if you just take the current discussion on part-time work and lifestyle part-time work and all that shit, sorry for the hard words, that is something which I think if people would be much more involved into things like that, into the decision process until something starts to be coming then into very concrete results, I think the acceptance would be much different and the wording would be much different. But at least in Germany, in German politics, it always feels like top down, and then there is people sitting without a connection to the everyday's life of most of the people and the majority of people. So therefore, I would love to have that, and so I'm convinced it would be definitely better than what it is today.
Let's move to our favorite topic of digitalization and sustainability. So at Siemens, you expanded the IT strategy to include sustainability. How do companies react when you tell them your IT must not only be efficient, but also sustainable?
It's also a very interesting question. And I would say it depends, which is a Swiss answer. I cannot take a clear stand here, but I think it changed over the last years. So when when I could support to develop the sustainability strategy for the IT in Siemens, I would even say I was at the right time in the right because it was relevant. It was a strategic topic. And therefore it was easier to talk to people. Nowadays, what is my experience when you talk about the topic, it gets slightly harder just because it's not everywhere at the same level of importance in the strategic agenda. So that's a bit, I think, the difference in time. However, I think what's very important very interesting if you combine that two topics, IT and sustainability, it's kind of a clash of different expertise, and people get like, what is this? This I get super often. Like if you talk to an IT person and you say, have you ever thought of making your IT more sustainable? They're like, what? Because it's kind of outside their scope. And if you go to people, I'm often also in circle of people who are very into sustainability. Sometimes I'm a bit in that bubble, and you come with the digitalization topic or the IT topic, they are like, how can we combine it? And this is quite interesting because people like to have this idea of making it easier by connecting digitalization with sustainability. There it's also different. Some people feel, oh no, now there is a burden. This means for us extra work. Why do I need to extend my mindset, for example, over digitalization and include sustainability in it? And then there are these people who think, that's cool. I think that's an opportunity to create something new, to think out of the box. So I would say you have these two different kind of people. And then just go with the second. Because then that's quite motivating. And now if I think back on when I could do the extension of the IT strategy in Siemens, there were some people, mostly younger generations, I think, which were quite motivated intrinsically to do something which has an impact on sustainability, and they really liking to work on that topic. And I think that was to me super motivating to see that if you tell a younger generation, hey, you can be in IT and work on sustainability topic, this was a really good selling point to even come to work in the IT department or do projects on digitalization for some people.
And that's, by the way, an excellent aspect to just point towards. Like you said it, Cristina, it's people who are interested in doing something. And sustainability, the term mostly tends at least to be interpreted like it's on ecological aspects and ecological sustainability, and we do something for nature and protect maybe something and avoid waste. But sustainability, even in IT, is a super broad aspect. So it goes into accessibility and inclusion aspects, for example. So make your website accessible, make your toolings accessible, and for people maybe from any kind of disabilities, include them into the society with providing them tools which are then digital. So there is a lot of different angles. It's mostly people who are interested in doing something. And I think that is what we have to learn more, and to be not so much biased and not so much stereotype following, that sustainability is just the green thing and it's just about planting trees. No, it's much more and much broader, and including in digital worlds. And that's already our core topic. It's twin transformation, what we do at Heartprint. One of the first projects which we've done together in 2024, we've developed a AI-supported ESG training for IT suppliers. And that brings me to a topic you've already pointed towards, efficiency and sustainability. I think things got much more important again now through the rise of AI. And since generative AI and large language models are used daily from, I don't know, billions of people worldwide, I think we have to have a very close look into that topic. So I would love to ask you that question. How can I help? How can AI support us in regard of sustainability? But on the other side, where are limits from your perspective?
So that's a very interesting question, and I think it's something you should always reflect about in every project individually, because it depends what's the outcome of the project, who is using the tool, or who is included in the process, and so on. In that specific project we did together, which was a very nice project as well, we could develop a training with the AI chatbot for the suppliers of the purchasing department. And the suppliers for the purchasing department, they should fill out the questionnaire in sustainability. And this was quite hard for them because, again, you have this two clash of different expertise. It's an IT person now who is confronted to fill out a questionnaire about sustainability. Where should this person have the information from? I mean, it's a lot to ask from somebody who never heard about the topic, or just slightly, as you said, Rainer, before, maybe, yeah, it's about reducing CO2 emissions, and that's it. So what we could do with the training is we could make a training for the people to fill out that questionnaire where they can have a guidance through that whole process without the need of getting all the information up front and doing that by their own. So they were supported by that process. And on top of it, we had a chatbot such that in the process, if there is some questions coming up, they could ask the chatbot. And that, I think, was a quite cool example of how you can use AI and digitalization to support people in doing their work. And I think the biggest benefit was also that they were more efficient. They did not lose so much time, and they could connect these two fields of expertise, IT and sustainability. The limits, of course, are depending on what kind of questions you have and you ask the chatbot, there might be limitations. And I think that's what you have with every chatbot. So it's quite important that you do a testing and you continuously think, how can we improve the chatbot? But for that specific case, it was a quite good tool to support the IT suppliers.
Thanks for the advertisement, by the way. So if you're now listening and you might think yourself, hey, that sounds interesting. Is that something Heartprint could do for us as well? Yes, we can. So just reach out to us, and the intellectual property for that chatbot and for the solution is with us. And with our partners from Quality Minds who did the technical part, more than happy to introduce you to. Thanks, Cristina.
So your work often involves stakeholder collaborations. What are the most common conflicts and how do you resolve them?
That's a hard question because there are always conflicts and they are always different. But if I think what are the most common conflicts where you always have, if you have a stakeholder collaboration, is the first I mentioned already at the beginning, it's that there is just no common understanding of the goal. And that's because people do not take the time at the beginning. You always start a project or an initiative, and then you just want to start because it needs to be done fast. But nobody wants to take the time to sit on a table and understand why we are doing it. And I would always argue that if you do not understand why you're doing, you do not even need to start. But that's something which, if this is not done, the conflicts become 99%. Another part is that people have individual goals, and that's, I think, you see almost everywhere where there are different stakeholders involved, because depending on what department they work, at what business level or wherever, they have a different agenda. They want to choose different goals, achieve different goals. And this you should make transparent by listening to people, ask questions, maybe also just observations. And then you at least see what is the difference, and then you can find a solution or a compromise. Another part, which is often comes a bit later in the project, people tend to have a hidden agenda. And that's the hardest part, because you just don't know. Often you don't know. You need to be almost a psychologist to really understand why they're actually against it. Like maybe it has something to do with their career or with some incentive in the company, and that's quite interesting. But this needs time, and there you can try to find out, but sometimes it's harder to find a solution for it because you cannot make it transparent, right? that would be not very empathic to do. But I think what's what's a good tool is still make everything transparent what you can in general. Like have a clear vision, clear goals, listen to people, ask questions, and also have clear roles and responsibility and ways of escalations. Like that's something which is also a must.
Super relevant. And I mean, talking a bit more on that angle, you are not just working day by day in Thema, and you're not just a consultant, but you have experience as coach and mentor. So you are supporting people, as we've already now learned in various different angles. Turn it the other way around. What do you learn from others when it comes to transformation?
So that's also a nice question. And I told Anthea before the interview, and I said I actually like more to listen and ask questions rather to talk. And I think that's what is very important, because by talking to other people who are in a different situation, maybe have a different education, different background, and so on, you are able to understand the situation and the view of that person, and you can put yourself in the shoes of the other person. And by taking that other perspective, you're actually able to you can kind of take it back to drive a transformation, because what you need in make a change or do a transformation is you need to understand the other people. Or you need to understand what can be done differently. So it's quite creative. Now, I'm not sure if this was clear, but what I take out of it is to just get inspiration from another person. What's their way of thinking? What's their way of solution a problem? And then when I'm working on transformation, maybe I think through what that person said and I tried another way. So that's what I'm taking from that coaching or talking to other people.
I really like that. That's nice. And a question that always moves us: how do you stay resilient when you're constantly switching between visions and implementation?
I think on a company or organizational level, exactly that switch between vision and implementation makes the company or organization more resilient, because people see why they're actually doing something, and that's again motivating, and vice versa. If I would talk about myself, it motivates me as well. Like if I know why I'm doing something, I have more patience to then do the implementation, because otherwise I think I'm not a very patient person, so I would maybe just not get through all of it. But if you have a clear vision and you know why I'm doing it, then you think, let's try it again, let's move forward, because that's what we agreed upon and now we want to finish.
And if I may enhance that, Cristina, because I know you a bit, the resilience in your case comes with finding a good balance. And in your case, it's sports and running. So if you follow, and if you would like to get depressed, unless you are a runner, a very active runner, if you'd like to get depressed, just follow Cristina on Instagram and you'll find times and a pace, a time per kilometer, which is, at least to me, super depressing, because you're ultra fast and you're doing that on a very constant basis. So that's your part of staying resilient, right?
It is. I mean, on a really personal level, it's really being outside in the nature, do sport, just do something where you move. I like to move because it gives you the feeling, or your body the feeling, that you get forward. Maybe that's something human, which gets lost a bit in our daily work, at least what we are doing. And this gives me kind of calmness, because you just move.
That's nice. Yeah. Sport is always a good idea. So we have a tradition in season 2, our 1 week in transformation challenge. So Cristina, if you could give our listeners a little exercise for the next week, what would it be?
There I was thinking on that question, and I think what everybody should do is they should pick a person where they see at work, outside, on the street, in the train, bus, where they feel this person is very different from me or from myself. And then they should start a conversation and see how it goes. This would be my to-do for everybody who listens today.
Excellent. I love that. I mean, that is something which definitely can bring a lot of new inspirational thoughts and experiences. I'm not so sure if you're in a big city how people react if you just, as a complete stranger, randomly just pick someone to say, "Hey, I just got a 1 week in transformation hint from Christina from Zurich, and I need to talk to you right now. But let's give it a try." So if you're out there listening right now, just do. If you're listening now in maybe public transport, which I know a lot of people do, and you just look around yourself and there is someone sitting which you think, well, that person looks complete different than what I am, talk to her or him or to the person and just figure it out. And let's just do so. I love that. Thanks for that.
At least you, Rainer and Anthea, you need to do it and give me an
And we will.
update. I will
Mhm.
check
Yeah.
in with you.
Promise we will. Promise we will. All the tips which we get from our guests in our podcast, we always try to do our very best to try that out. We've had some limitations in the past. So we've had Angelo from Roma from Italy who gave us a very good hint with trying a local AI, which we did. So that is something which we tried ourselves. And so we tried most of the tips
Mhm.
as it had been coming up in the last episodes. Another tradition which we have since the very, very first episode is our playlist, our One Day in Transformation playlist, where we put songs from each and every single guest on too. So, whatever type of style of music and whatever type of composer or whoever it might be, there is no right or wrong. And at least in the first season, we've had a super diverse playlist at the end, which was nearly everything from, I don't know, classical music to very modern music to, I don't know, 80s, 90s, and modern types. So, what would be a song accompany you right now, and what would probably be something you would like to add? Can be even two songs if you wish. So, in our very last episode, we had a very appreciated guest who did had 4 songs at least to put on our playlist. Neil, shout out goes out to him. So, if you have more than one, please feel free and welcome.
I have multiple, but again, it
Oh,
depends.
nice.
Like if I'm doing sport, I listen to different music rather than when I'm doing something else. But I have one artist which I like. I think I'm a bit a groupie in that, and he tends to be more for younger generations. But it's a song from Jeremy Loops. It's called Down South. And obviously he's from South Africa, so this is my why. If it's grey outside, like it is all the time in Zurich, especially in winter, or maybe also in Munich, you just need to listen to Jeremy Loops, and then you just feel the happiness, and that's my why. So I would highly recommend to everybody to listen to Jeremy Loops, go to concerts. If you go to a concert with him, take me with you. I'm always in. Just saying. Yeah, very good singer.
Excellent. I love that. And yeah, you're right. We're recording on February 20th. It's gray and it's cold, and it's, at least here in Munich, it's a bit of snow, but very wet snow. It doesn't feel like winter. It's a bit like somewhere in between. So excellent. Have something like that. Christina, thank you so much. We're getting closer to the end. Thanks for joining us. And I particularly remember one of your statements, which really lasts with me. And since we've learned about each other, it's about people, and it's only successful. Transformation is only successful if you combine strategy, technology, and people, and if you bring them together. And that's exactly what we experience as well, Anthea and myself. And so that's why we do that podcast, to bring transformation closer to people.
Exactly. And now to our closing part we all love, but a little different today. Pinky and the Brain. But as a question, Christina, if you had the power to change the world for just one night, what would be your first step or your first tip, you would say?
That's a very hard question, because I would like to change the world like forever, take over the world, and not only one night. However, if I could, I talked a lot about empathy and think or put yourself into the foot of somebody else. So what I would do, I would actually make people just be in the body of another person such that they really experience another situation, like for one day. Because I feel then the transformation, or at least the people who have the decision power to really drive the transformation, might be better in the future for all of us, like to just realize, okay, where actually are the other people sometimes, and then get a bit brainwashed, and then maybe you wake up and you are another person.
And I love that idea. And I mean, if we could do so, I think there would be a very simple rule, and that would be a gender switch. So males would have to
Yes.
be in the shoes of females and the other way around. I think even that would change the world dramatically out of a sudden. But well, that was maybe biased and stereotyped. I don't know.
It was exactly the same idea as I had. So I think it would be amazing, and I think it will bring everyone more understanding of each other, feeling the pain, the feelings of everyone. So that's a good idea. Yeah. Thanks for coming up with this.
Maybe it should be the two of you taking over the world. What do you think?
Yes, I love that.
A very good idea.
So, Rainer, one day in transformation.
And thank you very much. Danke vielmals, liebe Cristina. That was wonderful. That was just an amazing episode. I know you had been quite nervous up front, but without any reason. You did wonderful. And I am super confident that all the listeners out there will love to get in touch with you. So if you're out there, would like to invite Cristina for a run in Zurich, or invite Cristina to a concert of her favorite singer, you'll find the connection to Cristina's LinkedIn profile. As always, down below in the show notes, you'll find all the links to us, to all the other episodes there as well. And again, thank you very much for your time, and thanks for being part of us.
Thank you so much, Anthea and Rainer, for having me. It was a very pleasure to be here, and it was a very nice experience. Very cool. Thank you.
Thank you.